Disclaimer. The video is a critique and is considered constructive criticism. Please do not harass anyone involved in the video.
Hello everyone, it's me, Kathy here. And it's time I criticize something that isn't a person, but a project. A passion project. A crash and burned runaway train that turned up the tracks and never went back. Since I barely had any knowledge about the show until recently, call this video me analyzing a broken train crash and see what went wrong. Now, let's talk about Cartoonmania.
Slapstick is a concept that occurs in most classic cartoons.
For recap, Cartoonmania was a web series created by Matthew Littlemore / Animator 320, starring this Homer Simpson looking ass in a house of exactly 320 cartoon characters. And they like to go on failure events. Okay, that was off. Why did they choose this series to review? Well, I generally thought the series had a really good premise, but it's stuff like The Loud House or My Gym Partner's a Monkey that tell me that good premises don't automatically make a good show. And my god, like, holy shit, how do you fuck up a premise this badly? Web cartoons in general have a tendency to age like milk, and yeah, this show is definitely aged like milk.
Very funny, Donald. Don't worry, he's not gonna win. Well, I hope not.
Yeah, stuff like this is all over the series, but this isn't the biggest elephant in the room that's poorly aged. Matthew Littlemore has been infamous for doing disgusting things with both his characters and his actors. Like, all I'll just say is that he's a sick fuck, and that there's a Google Drive in the description that showcases the nasty things he did. So, yeah, this is one of those series that does kind of make me feel dirty talking about, although granted, it could be worse. And honestly, separating the art from the artist, this series is just a dumpster fire. I suppose the best starting place is the cartoon part in Cartoonmania. And now it's time for the other elephant in the room. That this series is animated in OpenOffice. Yep, a program for literal offices. It may be impressive for its software, but it still looks like dog shit. This would be like if I decide from now on, all my pictures should be done in LJN video art. Sure, making something halfway decent with the program is impressive, but it would still look like dog shit. Okay, that may be slightly exaggerated, but you get to see where I'm coming from. It's freaking embarrassing with shows with worse animation, like Battle for All Sleep. A show made with 3rd grade MS Paint art was actually animated in a higher quality program. About the Foster's comparison, I know Foster's is also animated semi-amateurly, being a rather early Flash cartoon, but it works better, as Foster's humor is a lot more dialogue-based, and it worked within the limitations of the series. Cartoonmania uses a lot more cartoony slapstick humor, which something like OpenOffice can't do all that well, and ends up looking less like Animaniacs and more like the wacky world Tex Avery, with how stilted everything looks. What also doesn't help is that some of the elements feel copy and paste. With Foster's, every character was designed to perfection with unique designs. In Cartoonmania, however, a lot of the elements are reused with a lot of the characters. The eyes on the cartoon characters and human characters are prime examples of this, as they just feel all like Echo Fires of Matthew. Seriously, they just copy and pasted the same character design over and over. And that's the best way to describe Cartoonmania's animation. I was not expecting top tier frame by frame animation, but with how every asset looks to be reused all the time, and with how rushed many of the assets look here, it just makes the show look lazy, and no wonder why it is able to turn out episodes very quickly, given how rushy animation is.
A cure for my adware flu? Gesundheit.
Cartoonmania supposedly has 320 cartoon characters, and so naturally I can't cover all of them. On paper, this may not seem like big of a deal, like The Simpsons has over 140 recurring characters. However, this is an issue in Cartoonmania's case, since there's supposedly 6 main characters, yet it's hard to describe them as they aren't focused on that much. The most notable examples are Timmy and Tanya, the tigers. They are supposedly main characters, yet they barely appear, and fucking hell, they're not even introduced into the series until halfway through season 1. I guess that's what happens when you try to make a show without being fully developed. Yeah, they're mostly just disgruntled war siblings anyway, so it's not like they're that interesting to talk about. On the topic of supposedly important characters, there's Penny and Victor, who are important because, well, they got Matthew in trouble. And they're also the home to the show's token shipping, and holy shit, it's fucking Stargirl levels of forced. What's worse is that they're so marriage-less together. It's kind of sad since of the main characters, they have like the best design, yet their relationship is so bland. Also, Victor's patterns are kind of distracting, honestly. Like, it feels like Matthew wants to do a chowder thing and makes the patterns move while the character is moving, but at the same time he doesn't. JoJo and Stanley are just the basic tropes. JoJo is the nerd who makes stuff, and Stanley is a typical man-child with a heart of gold. And then there's Wacky Quacky, a character who isn't considered a main character, but has a lot of screen time. Likely because he legit feels like a kid pandering character, if I gotta be honest. I mean, most of its jokes are just XD random funnies with an extremely loud voice. And of course, the star of the show is Matthew. He gets angry, and he really hammers it in, to the point where we get extended scenes of his anger. It's most infamously shown in the movie, which I'll get to. The character himself is really boring though. It just amounts to regular shows Benson without the character development, character growth, or badassery. Yeah, that's a problem with a lot of these characters. They don't really stand out that much, and there is no focus at all. Sure, each one is varied within the design, and some are clever, but these mostly just have one trait, and remind you of better things you could be watching instead, and are entirely based on one gag. This is especially a problem for the main characters, as they are no different from the side characters. Like, what makes a character like JoJo stand out compared to, say, Count Quarterbacula? There's nothing really, and that ultimately kills what characters we do get, for most of them. There are some characters I like though, however I'll save that to the very end. Technically speaking, Cartoonmania is split up into 3 seasons. Each season has around several shorts, which last from a few seconds to a few minutes, with several longer episodes. A lot of the show's episodes tend to be rather short and hard to talk about actually, as they barely even count as shorts most of the time. So in order not to repeat myself, I will only talk about the show's more notable episodes. So strap on in, as we're about to go for the journey of cartooniness. I know I said I'm not doing any of the shorts, but this one just amazes me and how badly it used group the first episode. This was like a teaser and the next episode explained the characters better. I wouldn't mind that, but this is the closest thing we get to an introduction. And this show isn't something like Mugman, where it's simple enough to get the characters and ideas very quickly. Cartoonmania is a more complex show that requires more explanation, thanks to its more complex world and especially characters and in terms of explaining what the show is about. And it fails at that. Besides its bad animation, it barely explains the concept, and only has around 3 characters and one quote-unquote important character. And we don't even get an idea on who these people are and their personalities. All I see is Homer Simpson badly getting tortured, and that's not enough to get what the show's about, which is a problem the series suffers through as a whole, as a lot of these earlier episodes just seem to have no direction in them whatsoever. I feel like this is a much better introduction to the series, as it does have more characters, a better understanding of the show is, and a look at the characters' personalities more. Doesn't mean it's good, however. For starters, there's this weird running joke where Matthew is trying to say it's his birthday today, and he gets cut off. I don't get it, honestly. And of course, more slapstick. Now, I don't want to sound like an oversensitive prick or anything, but since this is a character I don't even care about getting her after all, but I will say it's not funny, as the animation is barely improved here, and the only noticeable thing is that it has more detailed backgrounds in the first episode. And even then, the perspectives here still look like ass. It really gives me vibes of a generic stiff Canadian Flash cartoon. As for the plot? Well, okay, stop me if you heard this before. Characters set up a Halloween party, and it goes array because of a spooky creature. Yeah, this was done before with shows like Foster's and many other shows. Hell, even I did this plot before. And there's nothing original about it at all. It does have a noticeably bad twist, however.
But then how was all that stuff floating around? I was the cause of that. Mr. Incredibone? That's my name. I used my telekinesis powers to move all the furniture around so to make the visual effect of looking like there was a ghost roaming about the home.
Yes, a literal deus ex machina. Mr. Incredibone wasn't even in the entire episode, and if he was, how are we supposed to know he has telekinesis superpowers? At least foreshadow it a bit beforehand. It would still be flawed, but it would have made more sense. Other than that, this episode is boring. It's a simple plot that could have been done in 7 minutes, and yet it's stretched out this long. Unlike the previous episode, this one has the exact opposite issue, as this one has way too much going on. First it tries to showcase what the characters want for Christmas, then Matthew reveals that Santa isn't real, and then Stanley gets upset, and then Victor gets sick, and then the tree burns down, and then Wacky Quacky gets injured, except he's actually well, and Victor might die. Wait, I should have mentioned that Matthew is penniless and has to get money, so he tries to get jobs and... Chaos moment! Chaos moment! Chaos moment! It really feels like he wanted to make this special long, so he shoehorned in a bunch of stuff, like the Wacky Quacking and Victor things. And it also feels like Matthew a little more rushed this episode as well, as it feels like he wrote the script in one draft. As a result, this episode's plot is filled with nonsense. Even zany cartoons need to have some sort of logical joke structure. Around Season 2, the backgrounds did improve and have more added detail. Too bad the slapstick hasn't improved, as this episode is basically slapstick but done as a better pilot, as it has more characters. Also, one thing I should have mentioned this before, but I feel like the series would have worked better if Matthew was drawn more realistic, and if all the other characters were more cartoony. Come on, Matthew and Stanley literally have the exact same face and they hate it so much. This episode's just unremarkable, but out of all the poorly aged moments from the series, this one's probably my favorite.
My sweet, precious, wholesome, innocent swimsuit magazines. Those are not mine. That could be any Matthew. I am a horrible person.
Now this one is called an OKKO ripoff because of its statue gimmick, but they do realize that OKKO's episode had an actual story to it. Like seriously, this is meant to be a grand celebration of all things webtoons. Yet the actual story here is non-existent. Like, people complain about how OKKO are learning with Pibby for having references, yet they do realize that the shows have actual entertaining stories in there, and the references actually have thought put into them. Also, I just love Matthew's web fame hall choices here. Like, we got channels that aren't even web animators like Turkey Tom or Jello Scat Fetish. Channels that are literally giant memes like El Hugany or Yo Mama. Terrible people like Futuristic Hub or SML. Literal fucking baby channels like Coco Melon, Little Baby Bum, and a fucking Go Animator. Season 3 is just this episode. For what it's worth, I'll call this the best episode for the series. It's around C/D tier, but it's actually A tier for Cartoonmania standards. For one, this episode actually does have world building in it, and we actually get a backstory, and the idea for Victor is actually a decent one. And given all this episode's regular 11-minute cartoon episode length, has an actual title card, intro, and credits, I would say it's actually completed, to say the least. Of course, this episode does fall flat in a few areas. First, this episode has a distracting color palette choice. It has like this weird filter to it that gives it a distracting look. It really reminds me how The Simpsons had 2 episodes that were randomly digitally inked and colored back when the series was cel animated. But that's a nitpick. My real main gripe with this episode is how preachy its Be Yourself mortal is, and of course, we get more Penny and Victor cringe. I hate watching this couple so fucking much. Look, I have my own reaction to this film, but if you need a rundown, the film's main issue is its pacing and direction. The plots of the film are the A plot about Homer Simpson getting the animation job, the B plot about the 2 tigers messing things up and they have to learn maturity, while Homer tries to love them back, and the C plot where the mansion is being invaded, but none of these plots are balanced out at all. It has a lot of these scenes where nothing happens and barely anything gets anything done for the A and B plot for the first half of the film. It barely even feels like a movie, with its cheap productions and no scene of scale outside of 1 or 2 new location. It just feels like a series of episodes that's all connected by the stress ball of all things. And that ending, my god, its ending is so dumb, it feels so underwhelming. What a way to end up Cartoonmania, god, and to think this series had hype around it.
Heh. I guess I'm not so unlucky after all.
Okay, for what it's worth, I am a strong believer that every show has at least one redeeming quality, and nothing is truly effortless. And yeah, Cartoonmania actually does have a few good elements in it. For one, I actually do really like the backgrounds in the series, at least the more detailed ones, seasons 2 and 3. Though, not the fact that Matthew painted himself naked though. I hate that thought. Also, like I mentioned before, but the characters' designs are very varied and fun, with almost everyone having a unique concept, despite the fact that they're being drawn in such a shitty art style. In terms of the characters I actually like, Mr. Incredibone is actually really cute. Mr. Incredibone is actually a really cool character, and Matthew himself even felt potential in him, yet it never happened. Rollin is actually a really cute little critter as well.
Can't hate geckos, and that's a fact.
But my favorite characters have to be the stick figures. I just really love their Goodfellas-esque dynamic, and they're home to some of the series' best moments and episodes. They may not be as good as Fat Tony's gang from The Simpsons or Animaniacs The Good Feathers, but I like them, and I want to steal them from Animator. I mean, even if you don't like them, they still use the stick figure concept better than something like Dick Figures. Other than that, I can't really say the series goes above a meh. I mean, it's still better than Baby Lamb and Friends, Sticks, Greenie Phantom, or the Rodfellows, or Jungle Force Gang, whatever, for sure. Since at least Cartoonmania has some appeals.
If you are watching this, I am dead. If I am not, a miracle has happened.
This series just suppresses me deep down because I knew there was a better show somewhere in here. But the issue is that Animator didn't want it that way. Instead, he just acted like a jackass and now just lives underground somewhere, hiding from the cops. Matthew Littlemore is now Matthew No More, and the series lives on as just some giant meme. I'm feeling a strong 3 out of 5, maybe a 4 if I'm having a good day out of 10 here. I also know that there's a reboot in the comics along with other stuff, but I'll save that in a follow-up if that ever happens. Anyways, transition. Have you given the show a watch? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Well, do you rate it? Subscribe for more roast. Something, Sway Boy, Hipster Critic, bullshit. I'm the LitterBox Critic. I'm setting out Dr. Pepper 10. It's not for women.
Why did you do that?